Hello, welcome to the program. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says he is ready to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin face-to-face in Turkey on Thursday. But Zelenskyy says he's waiting for Russia to agree to a full ceasefire starting on Monday before the talks take place. That's after a series of diplomatic exchanges between key players to end the three-year Ukraine war. On Saturday, Ukraine and European leaders called for a 30-day unconditional ceasefire at a meeting in Kyiv. Let's go now to Zein Basravi, who joins us now live from Kyiv. Zein, I wonder if you could clarify exactly what Zelenskyy has been saying in his latest statement. Is he now saying he will meet with President Putin on Thursday, regardless of that 30-day ceasefire, which he has been insisting on until now?
This is really an interesting political chess game that Zelenskyy is playing. And it has to be said that this really feels like the moment that the Ukrainian president has been working towards for some weeks now. He's been calling for more pressure on the Russian government, backed by sanctions, calling on international leaders to put more pressure and the threat of sanctions on Moscow to bring them to the table. And that seems to be playing out now. We had this high-profile visit on Saturday by EU leaders backing that plan, and the White House of U.S. President Donald Trump on board with the idea of a 30-day ceasefire. And now we see Zelenskyy over the last few days pressing the idea of a ceasefire backed by the threat of sanctions, and now we see this statement. Let's look at the latest thing that he said. He has said, taking to social media, we await a full and lasting ceasefire starting from tomorrow. That's Monday, May 12th. And he goes on to say to provide the necessary basis for diplomacy. There is no point in prolonging the killings, and I will be waiting for Putin in Turkiye on Thursday. Personally, I hope that this time the Russians will not look for excuses. Keir Starmer, the British leader, said something very interesting when he was here. He said that together the world was calling Putin out. And in this sense, we hear it directly from Zelenskyy himself. He seems to be doing the same thing. So to answer your question, what we know are two things now. That Ukraine will indeed be represented at those talks in Turkey. They will be going. And the main man himself, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, will be going to Turkey to try and take part in those talks. Now, what we are hearing from several observers and analysts and experts on these political matters is that this is an expert move by Zelenskyy because he wins either way. He goes and shows that he is leading from the front, that he is willing to participate in talks to end this war, serious talks, not just a ceasefire that lasts for a few days. And if Putin does not show up, it works in his favor. It illustrates what Ukraine has said all along, that Russia is not serious about stopping the war. If Russia does come to the table, then it illustrates that they are willing to negotiate with Zelenskyy, whose role they have tried to downplay since the beginning of this conflict. So it will be interesting to see what happens in coming days. It is about 9 p.m. local time here. We are expecting this ceasefire to take effect from midnight into tomorrow, but people are bracing for what they expect will be more air raid sirens and possibly more Russian attacks. They are not expecting Russia to honor the ceasefire.
OK, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in the next few hours. Zein Basravi there for us in Kyiv. Well, let's take a few steps back because Volodymyr Zelenskyy's statement followed shortly after a post on Truth Social by Donald Trump. The US president said the following: President Putin of Russia doesn't want to have a ceasefire agreement with Ukraine, but rather wants to meet on Thursday in Turkey to negotiate a possible end to the bloodbath. Ukraine should agree to this immediately. I'm starting to doubt that Ukraine will make a deal with Putin, who's too busy celebrating the victory of World War II, which could not have been won, not even close, without the United States of America. Have the meeting now. Let's cross to Mike Hanna in Washington, D.C. So that statement from Donald Trump speaks for itself. Just talk us through the details of it, if there are any more details, and what sort of reaction there's been to it.
Well, in reading out the statement, you provided all the details completely. But it is interesting in the timing of Zelensky's confirmation that he will be going to Turkiye for that meeting, because before that he was insisting on a ceasefire as a preemptive step before going to the meeting. However, then we had this social media post by Donald Trump in which he urged Zelenskyy to go to the meeting regardless because, says Donald Trump, we, by which he means European leaders and Ukraine, will know where Russia stands finally and will act appropriately. So Donald Trump's social message apparently goaded Zelenskyy to agree to take this meeting without Russia accepting the ceasefire, which previously had been his absolute insistence. So now you do have a situation where President Trump has intervened and would appear to have persuaded the Ukrainian president to attend that meeting in Turkiye. What comes out of that? Well, Donald Trump appears to be rather pessimistic, saying that, as we heard in the statement there, that Putin of Russia doesn't want to have a ceasefire agreement with Ukraine. But the point that President Trump is making is that the meeting should go ahead regardless, because then it will be very clear where Russia stands, whether or not it is prepared to enter real negotiations, whether it is just stalling, in which case, says President Trump, we, the European leaders and Ukraine, will take appropriate action. Most significant about this social media statement is that President Trump is coming down on the side of the European leaders and Ukraine, despite sometimes in previous weeks where he appears to be having the maximum pressure on Zelenskyy and less on the Russian president. That appears to have shifted now if this social media post is to be accepted.
Okay, thank you for that. Mike Hanna there for us in Washington, D.C. Let's speak to the analyst Michael Bociurkiw, who's a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council. He joins me now from Victoria in Canada. Many thanks for your time. So, Michael, what is your sense of where we are at right now? Is, in terms of how our correspondent put it, is this a political chess game that President Zelenskyy is winning right now?
Yes, well, we couldn't ask for a better, more dramatic chess game, geopolitical chess game than this one. And it looks like President Volodymyr Zelenskyy of Ukraine has just checkmated Mr. Putin by saying, OK, I'm going to show up in Turkey on Thursday, and I expect to see you there. I believe Mr. Putin was expecting to send lower-level officials to Istanbul to meet with lower-level Ukrainian officials and to do what he always does, is to drag things out as long as possible while gaining more territory and while continuing to pulverize Ukrainian cities. The other thing we know about Mr. Putin, he does not react well to ultimatums, and that's what was given to him by Western leaders in Kyiv yesterday. And we could see that he was rattled at that press conference yesterday. He didn't take any questions from the media, but he was reading very, very closely from prepared notes and looking very tired. So things can go either way right now, but it would be, I think, in the long run, fantastic if they both met face to face. Very, very bold move by Mr. Zelenskyy, and that's being reflected on social media in Ukraine right now, too.
So what, I mean, you have so much experience on the two countries. You spent lots of time in Ukraine. What is your sense of what is going to happen next? Because President Zelenskyy essentially is insisting that ceasefire begin in a few hours from now. Is that what we're going to see or not?
Well, the only way we will see Russia adhere to that ceasefire is if real teeth are put in place by not only the Europeans, but also the Americans in terms of sanctions. But it needs a broad-based, across-the-globe approach. And what I mean by that is they have to get their friends in the UAE, in Turkey, in Thailand, to really threaten to put the noose around Mr. Putin and his circle of oligarchs and say, okay, no more luxury property buying in Dubai, no more parking your yachts in Thailand, no more tourism even to Turkey. Cut that flow off, and then Mr. Putin will really feel the pain. Just quickly on this one, I mean, we saw the huge disruption the Ukrainians caused to Russian tourism and aviation when they sent drones over the course of 3 days, interrupting operations at 13 airports. That really brings the war home to Russia, to ordinary people, and that's what needs to be done now if they don't adhere to a ceasefire.
Trump has threatened to walk away from the peace process if there isn't some kind of settlement or agreement on a ceasefire soon. It does feel like we're coming to a head here. Do you think he might walk away? And what is that going to look like?
Yes, I do. I mean, it really, I don't mean to sound too cynical, but it really does feel like the rules-based international order is in a free fall right now because of Mr. Trump wanting to walk away from big problems. I mean, I think that's why the India-Pakistan conflict went as far as it did, because no one sees red lines anymore, and the U.S. is not intimately involved. Same thing here. Autocrats like Mr. Putin, when they don't see solid red lines enforced by the United States, they go further and further. All they see is gray lines to be exploited. So it's crucial that the United States put its full force behind this and threaten, along with Europe, those biting sanctions and more weaponry to Ukraine. That would really push Mr. Putin in the corner, I think.
OK, thank you so much for your time and thoughts today. Michael Bociurkiw, Senior Fellow at the Atlantic Council.
Thank you.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.